It's almost like bringing your heart and a hard hat. So I also bring in the strength where I say, we are going to F somebody up. I'm the voice for the voiceless. I help people that are defenseless. I help people that are injured and accused. That's what I do.
So I'm here with Sharen Ghatan.
Yes.
You're an attorney. You are also an entrepreneur. And before we even sat down at the couch, we were talking about the extraordinary hustle that women entrepreneurs who happen to also be attorneys, how much hustle you have to have. So let's start a little bit about you and your background and kind of how you came to be an attorney with her own practice in Westwood.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to be here. As you said, my name is Sharen Ghatan. I have my own law firm, California.
Actually, I said Susan Ghatan.
Oh, good Lord. I thought that was another lady or an
we're
alias.
We're going to edit that shit right on out.
So I am running California Legal Counsel. I've been in business for 25 years now.
No way.
So it sounds crazy because I'm only 29, so
I
the
know,
math doesn't add up. How does this work? But I've been doing it for a minute, and just speaking to the hustler aspect, I really think it's a personality type.
Yeah.
So when we all go to law school, we are taught all about the academics of law school, academics of law, etc. There is no business of law course. I want you to know that.
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing taught to us about HR, hiring, firing. Where do you get leads? Where do you get clients? How do you open up an office? Do you need legal malpractice insurance? Do you have to go to conferences? Do you need continuous legal education? No one ever tells you about.
Because it's not like you get out of law school and put a shingle up open for business, because you are in business, right? You're not just an attorney, like you are running an entity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like there are two kinds of attorneys. There are the attorneys that are attorneys, and then there are the attorneys who are also business people.
Right.
Now, when they mesh, that actually becomes the third category. That's where I fall in.
Right.
So I'm the attorney and the business person behind the entire firm. So we have to be responsible for taking care of our team. Our staff has to be happy. We're always looking for new people to add. We have to keep up with clients. We have to call them, talk to them, file paperwork, advance all these costs and fees. Again, no one teaches you that. So being in that third category is the most challenging, because I would really love to do one or the other.
Yeah.
If you left me alone and said, hey, Sharon, what would you like to do all day long if you didn't have this pressure of running the whole firm? I tell you, I'd love to be a rainmaker. I'd love to come to these podcasts. I'd love to be speaking on a podcast. I'd love to be sharing knowledge. I'd love to be networking with other attorneys. I was just in an event last night, right? I have another event tonight. It's like boom, boom, boom. But I can't always be networking because I actually have to work on the cases that I sign up, right? So it's multifaceted. But being in my role, being especially an entrepreneur and a female, adds a few more layers to the onion, if you will, right? I am competing in a predominantly male field. So what I do is personal injury and criminal defense. Both specialties highly identifiable with men. You see all the billboard lawyers, they're men. You don't see women on there. Criminal defense, they're always men. Now, I'm very happy to see that recently we've had the Johnny Depps, we've had even Donald Trumps, all these folks who hire women attorney. Kobe Bryant, God rest his soul, when he had cases, they hire a lot of women. It's gone. Yesteryear of O.J. Simpson having that 5-person dream team that's all men, those days are gone. You have to have a woman. If you're really smart, for criminal especially, you have a woman as your lead. Personal injury, same thing.
Why is that?
I feel that it will really soften the case because people see me. So on the outside, they think, oh, she's a female, she has long hair. I feminize and kind of soften the case. But at the same time, I'm a complete boss bitch. So if you have me, I'm going to be stronger than any guy because I come off looking soft. Right. So it's like a surprise.
Yeah, sneak attack.
Yes.
Yeah.
The men can't be like that because they're just at first glance, you assume that that's how they're going to be. So there's no surprise.
Right.
And if they're even soft, it's actually confused for weakness. Whereas with women, you can look soft and be pretty, but it doesn't mean it takes away anything from your intelligence, tactics, strategy, or experience.
Yeah.
So I actually think it's a huge asset.
Yeah. So let's go back to the, where in law school, you didn't learn how to be a business person.
Nope.
So how did you go about setting up your business practice?
So the only way to do it is through internships and previous job experience. So right when I was in law school, I had a couple really great internships. Believe it or not, I started off in entertainment law. I thought it would be super glamorous and I'd be having lunch with Brad Pitt one day, George Clooney the next. No, I worked at New Line Cinema. I worked at MPAA, who do all the motion pictures with the ratings. I worked not having lunch with the celebrities that I thought I'd be having. They put me in a corner doing contract administration.
That's a huge buzzkill.
Super. And all I was doing is looking over contracts and who had Avion water and who was allowed a crib. I swear, who was allowed a crib in their green room, and the kind of the kind of nannies we would allow, budgets for nannies, waters, and again, nonsense like that. And I thought to myself, I went to law school for this crap.
Yeah.
So it wasn't for me. So I pursued a few internships, and it was really, I guess, destiny that I went to work for one of the top personal injury civil rights firms in Beverly Hills. And this particular boss that I had was a male, and it was a small practice. I didn't want to do a huge firm.
I feel like that's something you kind of, either you want that big, huge auditorium experience or you're much more boutique-y, right? Like there's two, and that's in business as well, any kind of business. So
you're so right.
Yeah. So go on.
It's a real big distinction. So you always hear about big law. That's what you see on TV.
Right.
Suits, all these shows, LA Law, even going back to Ally McBeal, if you're old enough to know that. Again, it's like the old version of Suits. That's what we call big law. Okay. So the way that you work it is you become like a little baby junior associate. You're bossed around by your senior associates and your partners, and you're told what to do, and you have to do it, and that's fine. You have billable hours, and then your whole goal is to essentially go up in some strategic fashion and try to become partner. That's the whole game. Now, that is big law. Then we have boutique firms, exactly as you called it, boutique or small or solo. I like the term boutique because it indicates more hands-on, more attention, literally me talking to clients having access to me, seeing me, not like they have to talk to the minions and they never get to talk to me. It doesn't work that way. I really enjoyed the boutique. So I worked for several boutique law firms, and I was trained really well. And I kind of got thrust into the criminal world because I was working at a PI firm.
Right.
And they said, listen, a couple of these folks have some things in their criminal histories that's going to be real detrimental for their personal injury cases. It's going to affect their credibility. Do you think you can go help them? I'm like, me? What? Look at me. Like, I'm going to go to criminal court. I'm going to get eaten alive. They said, you'll be fine. And they literally just threw me into it.
Wow.
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was so fun. It was so much action. And remember, I was used to the contract admin and sitting and doing paperwork. So I suddenly went from being transactional to actually being a litigation attorney.
Right.
So
like
I was
action.
yeah. Literally what you see on TV that you think that's where the action is. Estate planning, bankruptcy. You think these people get into court? They don't.
Right.
They don't. That's not what they do. So once I got into the courtroom and I realized that I love to perform. I'm a performer. I'm also a trained comedian, believe it or not.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Studied for a full year, no joke, dedicated, I don't know, I would say 30 hours a week for a full year where I graduated. I performed at all these different comedy locations you guys would know about in LA. So I love to perform. And so now I use my talent of performance and my natural gift on the stage at the courthouse. That's what I do. So there are a lot of other attorneys who are not so inclined, or they're not naturally public speakers, makes it harder for them. I try to capitalize on what I find to be easy for me. So doing all of that, I started. Now, I started doing that, worked for these firms, and then I realized I want to work on my own. So it was great working for them. That's how you learn. You
Yeah.
asked me, Sharon, how do you learn? How do you know? You can't just open up an office, magically absorb 50K to 100K a month on expenses. Where's the money? Who's paying you? How are you getting people? Who's answering your phone calls? Who's responding to your 800 number? So there are different team members who make up the entire team that help me to be successful.
Right.
Without the whole team, I can't do this by myself
Right.
at all. So I have to give them full credit for supporting me, assisting me, helping me. So it takes a village, as they say. So that's how I started learning from my previous jobs and having great mentors.
And how lucky are you that someone just pushed you into the lion's den, right? Like that's the universe just sliding in and slapping you right on into where you're supposed to be. I think that is really, really cool.
Yeah.
So from the time you were interning and kind of learning until you opened your shop,
Yes.
your boutique firm, were you in your 20s?
Yes.
Okay, so you knew pretty much out the gate that you wanted to be in charge of your own firm.
Yes. I started very early. I've skipped a few grades. I was in advanced classes. So I graduated very early. I think I was 23 or 24 when I became an attorney. So pretty young. Worked for a couple years for different boutique firms and then started my own practice. So remember, the other part of starting is you also have you have to have a certain presentation and skill set and maturity. I don't know too many people that just want to hire a 24-year-old girl, and say, hi, come and take on this, serious felony case, or come and take on somebody getting run over by a truck. So you really have to have yourself together. You have to be really confident, and you have to be able to be super curious and naturally savvy to get help if you didn't know how to do it. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I did. And I sought out a lot of help of senior attorneys, other folks, educated myself. And obviously I had gone to schools. I went to UC Berkeley. I went to law school. I'm always continuously learning. That's what I did.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
And, just because you're an attorney and you graduate from law school doesn't necessarily make you a leader, right? So what did you do to become the leader that you are? Leadership skills are very different than performative skills, right?
Very true.
How did you come to your leadership style?
Again, I really appreciate these compliments. I think I was natural born leader. It's again a real personality style. My hobby is astrology, so I'm an Aries.
Sweet. I'm Libra.
You see, we get along.
I knew it.
We get along. My son is a Libra. So we get along. You understand me very well. So Aries are really natural born leaders. As I said, it kind of goes with loving the spotlight, loving performance, loving being the center of the action. So it was pretty simple. I knew that I could not have a boss over me.
Yeah.
I learned because I worked for other folks. It was very hard for me to be an employee. So I knew I wanted to be an employer, and I knew I wanted to be the boss, and I knew I wanted to be the rainmaker. And again, all that is on me. Obviously, I hire different people. I have different marketing campaigns, but at the end of the day, it's me. I am selling me. I am the product. I'm not selling pencils. I'm not selling blazers. I'm selling me. So I have to have that confidence and the staff and the team to support that. So that's what I do. It's just, honestly, it's just very instinctual for me.
Right.
It's native. It's nothing I have to work at. I'm fortunate that way. I had great parents who really pumped me up and told me.
Makes such a huge difference. And you can always tell too, know.
They really pumped me up. Every single day, I was told by my mom that I was the best.
Yeah.
And if you get that message every single day for decades, you start believing it and you start living it. And you want to help people. And my dad taught me that we're born to be of service. So my dad was the royal physician. So he was always serving and helping. So I was told that the thing that would be most, how can I say, give me most satisfaction would be to serve the community, serve people. So I'm really here to help people. That's all. I'm the voice for the voiceless. I help people that are defenseless. I help people that are injured and accused. That's what I do.
Yeah. That's a load to carry around with you every single day, being the voice for marginalized or accused. And, how do you deal with that? Again, it goes back to the balance that we were talking about even before we started this interview. Like, how
Yeah.
do you balance all of these things? It's not even work life, right? Like it's a different thing. It's an emotional, it's like from your work comes this emotional weight,
Yeah.
right? Like, how do you balance that? It's unique to what you do, right? Like
Yeah.
only another lawyer in your situation who is a comedian, right? Like, right, like the 1/1 millionth of a percent, but it is a question because as women, we have different standards that we must hit. And,
Definitely.
like showing emotion sometimes is not something we can do
Yeah.
because we don't want to be perceived as weak. And so what do you do with all of that, the weight of what your work brings?
It's a very delicate dance. You're absolutely spot on. So remember, people, when they're hiring me, the reason they're hiring me is actually because of the emotion. So I am known for having a niche with the personal injury, with having sexual assault victims as my clients. So when I have someone who approaches me and says, for instance, their child, God forbid, these horrible cases, was sexually assaulted by a teacher, sexually assaulted at a daycare while the
Mhm.
mom is at the gym. Okay, something crazy like that. Again, it can happen at school, at the church, at the temple,
Anywhere.
anywhere.
Yeah.
Someone comes and tells me, I have to, and I do use my empathy,
Yeah.
my heart.
Your
I mean,
EQ. You have a very high
yes.
EQ.
I mean,
Yeah.
my heart goes out to them. Like, I'm a woman. I have a daughter. I have 2 boys and a girl. So I get it. I'm like, oh my God, this can happen to any of us. So I do bring in my heart, but at the same time, it's almost like bringing your heart and a hard hat.
Yeah.
So I also bring in the strength where I say, okay, we are going to F somebody up. We are going to hold this entity accountable. How dare this person, you drop off your child at school, and there's an instructor there
Yeah.
that's taking your kid for private lessons and teaching them all the things you don't want, if you know what I'm saying. That's unacceptable. So the teacher's going to be held accountable. The school's going to be held accountable. School district, superintendent, we're going to bring them all in.
Yeah.
So I bring in the heart and the strength because I have to. Now, you mentioned, how do you balance it? It wasn't until I was in a conference in Mexico, it was an all women's conference, I learned about something called secondary PTSD.
Oh, shit. That
I
sounds serious.
didn't even know I had it.
Oh,
So I am essentially permanently like traumatized because of all my clients' cases.
yeah.
Okay.
But it seems like the way you're just explaining it, and, tell me to shut up if this is
No.
wrong, but the part of that balance is that it's not like you're just carrying the weight. You're doing something about it, right?
Yes,
Like
I'm
you are
trying.
taking action on
Yes.
behalf of the suffering that you carry around with you, which I think is really a powerful statement about the work that you do. Anyway, I answered my own question, but go back to your secondary
But that's it.
PTSD.
I never even knew that was a term
I
of
didn't.
art.
I've
I
never heard
even,
it.
I never heard it. And I'm an educated person, but I'd never heard it.
But what's the secondary part of
So
it?
the secondary part is when I as a woman hear about this woman sitting across from me telling me that she was violated and how it happened, and how I have this one client who had to have a major surgery, multiple surgeries, because she was violated for 3 hours by this horrible human being. I keep replaying it in my head.
Of course you do.
Okay. And I will never, when I asked her, how did this happen? And she said she was asleep and she opened the door because it was a banging and she thought it was the police or some sort of management. And she opens the door. From the moment she told me that story, I was in a hotel last week for Thanksgiving. We'd gone to visit family. My kid went to open the door. I said, no.
Yeah.
Check
Yeah.
the people. Why? That's the secondary PTSD of that woman's story in my head, saying she opened it, closed eyes, asleep, 3 a.m. My kid is going. I say, no, the kid is looking in the people, because now that story is a part of me.
Yeah.
I will never open the door ever, if
Yeah.
it's my house or a hotel, without checking the people.
Yeah.
And everybody else
Total trauma.
should do that too, because I know of a real woman, a real story of what she did, thinking, oh God, there's some sort of emergency in the building, opening the
That is
door.
absolutely horrifying and chilling.
Yes, it is literally what you hear about in movies,
Yeah.
but it's real. but it's real. So I know it's real.
Yeah.
So I have my social media where I try to share these stories.
Right, because there are lessons that shake out of all of these cases, you know?
I'll give you another story that's really interesting. I had one of my posts go viral because I said, valet, no way. And it was very catchy.
Oh, and it's rhymey.
Yeah.
Oh my
And
God, you're a rapper
And,
too?
and it's very catchy. Just last night, I had at this event that
Wait,
I had
why valet no way?
Okay. So as a woman, we have to be extra on guard. I have had stories of folks who tell me that the valet, especially if you're in a high-end vehicle, which maybe has, let's even say a Tesla, okay? It has the location of where you've been last, where you're going. I always advise people never put in home.
Oh,
Never put in home.
no.
If you come into my car right now, you will not know where my home is, even though I go there every night,
Oh my
because
God.
I will put in my office address, not my home
Because they
address.
stalk.
Because they can check. The valet has access to your car. They can check, again, for potential to rob you, follow you, stalk you, whatever it is. They don't need to know.
Yeah.
So if they're going to check, they're going to find a law firm and they're going to freak out and say, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Oh, damn. I don't want
You
to
can
mess
say-
with
you
this.
can say shit.
I didn't know.
It's all
Oh,
good.
damn. I don't want to mess with this person. So you have to be really careful with valet. I had a woman who had a stalker, and however the stalker managed to do it, they managed to get in one of those Apple AirTags into the trunk space. Oh, yeah, I'm telling you, I hear it all. Into the trunk space of the car. You'd never know it because the sound is not audible because you're driving.
Yeah.
They have it deep into the trunk space. And she tells me, Sharon, nobody had access to my car. It had to have happened by some valet. I don't give my car. No one else has
Wow.
my keys. Another thing, people losing gift cards and these things because you keep it in there. Sunglasses, even little monetary losses. I'm not a big fan of valet for that reason. I'm not
Yeah.
accusing anyone,
Right.
but the only way not to accuse anyone is not to give your car to valet.
Right.
So again, this is secondary trauma.
Right.
God forbid, has it
But
happened
also,
to me? No.
like, it's a service that you're providing because Galena, no, my brain does not,
Think like that.
it doesn't go there. You
Yeah.
know, it's just, we trust.
And unfortunately, in my world, dealing with either the criminal entity or the injured entity,
Yeah.
I constantly I'm on edge.
Yeah.
I'm constantly like thinking multiple steps ahead. When my navigation is telling me to exit on Hoover, I don't want to exit on Hoover.
Yeah.
There's multiple streets. I'd rather just go straight on the 10 and get to my destination where I was last night. I don't want to exit on Hoover. If I have car trouble, I don't want to be by USC.
Yeah.
Having car trouble. I'd
No, you
I'd
really
much
don't.
rather be on the
Right.
freeway, right? I
Right.
still, even though that's high risk, I'd rather be there
Yeah.
than be on Hoover. So I just have to think of these things, putting ourselves in situations, being safe. You go to check in again. It's the holiday season. We're all going to travel. What if you're traveling alone? What if you're traveling, your husband's not there, significant other isn't there? We all need to check in our egos at the door. We're all feminists. I'm the biggest feminist. I'm super independent, all that. But when I'm checking in, I'm going to say to the person at the front desk, I'm going to need 2 keys, one for myself, one for my husband, even if my husband's not with me. Why? Because I want that person to hear me and the person
everybody
next to them to
else,
hear me,
yeah.
that there's going to be somebody else in the room.
Yeah.
Do you get it? It's
I
just
do.
the little things. Why? Because I live in a world where all I hear are stories of crazy people doing crazy things.
Yeah.
So we have to safeguard.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, no, and I think that's another way that you sort of deal with that trauma is like you're this outreach trying to help people is, probably soothes a little bit of that weight of suffering that you carry. I don't know. It's just
Absolutely.
really, really interesting. So,
Maybe that's what I do and I don't even realize it.
I mean, it just seems to me like if it was like a deeply embedded trauma, you wouldn't be able to help other people with the
Oh.
knowledge that you have. I don't know. I'm a Libra.
Yeah.
It could
You
go
guys
either
don't want
direction.
controversy. You just
No,
want
we
peace. That's
just
it.
balance and harmony.
Yes.
So do you consider yourself an entrepreneur or a lawyer?
Both.
Both equally?
Both.
Or
Equally.
Yeah.
Yes, because I'm on my own,
yeah.
right? There's no guaranteed paycheck, kind of like an actor, right? We go from gig to gig. When I walked in here and I said hello, they said, oh, this poor gentleman, he just had an accident, et cetera, et cetera. And the first thing I did is, oh, hello. I introduced myself. I'm
Yes,
like,
you did.
what happened to you? Oh my God,
Yeah.
let's talk about it.
I can be your attorney, I think is a direct
I
quote.
literally said that. I could be your attorney. He said he got hit by a truck. That's like bing, 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 bing. Because 1, I know I can help.
Yeah.
And 2, I know I can make a difference. And 3, I know I can get him justice.
Yeah.
So I want to make myself available. So I'm very friendly. I'm really just very talkative. I talk to everybody from, let's say, the guy who is, greeting me at the front desk every morning, or, let's say somebody opens the door for me. I'm always friendly. You always want to be accessible, and you never know where the next big case is going to come from. You never know when that big client who you're going to make a difference. I'd love to tell you about a case that's one of my favorite cases that came up. One of my favorite ones I just closed this year. Young girl, and the way she was introduced to me was through another attorney who is a friend of mine. And he said, listen, this is a weird case. It is the crossroads of where criminal and PI meet. PI means personal injury. Yeah. I said, oh, you don't want to do the case yourself? He said, no, it's a family member, so it's really too close for me.
Oh.
I want you to help me. So he had this beautiful niece who was underage. Her father had just recently passed away. She had a great mom who was trying to help her. And the mom said to her, you seem a little bit down. Maybe you should get a job on top of school. Maybe you have something to do on the weekends. It's going to make you feel good, keep you occupied, maybe less focused on the whole dad situation. I thought, okay, well, this is great. She went to work for a major restaurant chain that you would know. I can't say the name since the case has long been closed this year, and we signed an NDA. She went to work for this chain. They have cameras everywhere. It's a known brand. It's super popular. And unfortunately for this young lady, she had an awful supervisor. And I don't mean that he was mean or gave her bad shifts. He was manipulative. He was 11 years her senior. He saw that she was a young girl. She wasn't savvy. He started grooming her. That's the technical term. You don't, look good. You don't seem happy. What's wrong? Hey, you can talk to me. Started talking to her and trying to seduce her.
Oh my God.
Gets her addicted to drugs and then starts violating her. So now we have multiple cases here, right? There's the criminal component.
Right.
Because this guy's 11 years her senior, dealing with somebody under 18, that's a crime. Okay. And then he's doing it on the job with all the cameras. And yet all the other staff know about it. The other folks know about it. Nobody's doing anything. Nobody's intervening, interfering, nothing. This is all going on.
Because he's the boss, right?
Because he's the boss. But everybody has a boss.
Right.
So why didn't somebody know about this?
Right.
Obviously, in the end, it was the franchise that was held accountable. The guy who was doing it, making it
the franchise, the main franchise, or the franchisee?
No, the owner,
the big overlord,
the big mama and papa who owned the whole thing.
Gotcha.
Had to cough up because there was the criminal component, the personal injury component, and then there was even an employment component because this is all happening while she's an employee of this company. So we were able to secure her a 7-figure settlement, which is life-changing.
Did that guy go to the...
Oh, hell yeah, he did.
Goodbye.
So the other part that I did is to secure, I acted as a victim's advocate. Instead of doing criminal defense, I was her victim's advocate, where I went to court, went through, and almost became besties with the DAs because for once I was on their side. I wanted them to secure a conviction. I wanted this guy to get the maximum penalty. We made sure to make our victims impact statements. You heard about this on the news just recently where there was a young girl who was involved in a hit and run and she was sentenced to 25 years. And it was because the family of the victim came forward and they're like, we don't forgive you, et cetera, et cetera. Right. It was a tragedy.
Yeah. I remember that now.
Sometimes you have to do that. So I was happy to be on that side. Because remember, I am hired to be on whichever side is necessary.
Yeah, right.
And I much prefer to be on the side that I was at. And now this person has to register as a sex offender for life. He's never going to be able to go to Disneyland. He won't be able to go to, let's say, his niece's graduation from school. He will be barred from having a normal life, as he should be, because he's a sick individual.
Yeah.
And this poor girl, listen, the money, it's not always all about the money.
No.
It's not.
Nor should it be. Yeah.
It's about justice. And now I always am thinking, and now we're very friendly with the family. And now they know they can always reach out to me. And as a result of what she went through, she kind of lost it for a minute. So she
course.
started getting into her own trouble. So then I had to defend her. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah, because
Does
it's a
it-
spiral, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You get it. So it's not about the money. The money is great and it makes you feel like you did something.
But it doesn't fix your damage.
My God,
you
it
know?
doesn't. It doesn't. So you hear about these things called nuclear verdicts, where you hear people getting 10, 20, 50, hundreds of millions of dollars. I have friends that get hundreds. They do the really big cases where they're essentially accusing the entire Catholic Church or an
Yeah.
entire school district, right? So they're representing like, I don't know, 10, 15 kids all against this one teacher. Those go into the hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
And why do they get it? They damn well should get
Yeah.
it. Of course they
Yeah.
should. These lives are forever altered. They're forever destroyed. And there's no amount of shopping that's going to fix that.
No.
I want people to know that, because
Yeah.
I think people look at PI attorneys as ambulance chasers or, oh, we're out. It's really not like that. We're
Yeah.
helping the most injured of folks. I get it. It's not the same as writing your estate plan. I get it. It's not the same as you filing for a patent with a patent attorney. I get it. But don't begrudge us those verdicts and those settlements, because you need to really understand and look into the eyes of the clients that we have,
Yeah.
and you'll understand why they are so deserving of those high amounts, because their life's never the same.
No.
Their life is never the same.
No. And, you read about it. It's so different to hear, a first person primary source, share these kinds of stories, because they're always eye-opening and illuminating, terrifying, chilling.
Yeah.
And I think it's like what you just said is really important takeaway from this conversation, which is, labels, like the work that you do is so much bigger than any label anyone can slap on,
Yeah.
or bemean, belittle what you do in your work,
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's a big,
The injuries are real. I'll speak about a completely different type of injury so you guys can relate. It was just on the news this past weekend. There's a young quarterback named Trevor Lawrence. He suffered what's called a TBI, traumatic brain injury.
yeah.
TBIs happen. We see it all the time in boxing and football. All right, you expect it there. Okay, you expect it there. You don't expect it if somebody's walking through the doors of Bank of America,
No.
let's say, or walking through the doors of a boutique and a door falls down and crushes somebody.
Right.
Okay.
No, just that's, yeah.
That is unacceptable. For $100 door fix, you don't fix it, and a door falls and crushes somebody. We've had cases like that, and people suffer traumatic brain injury as if they were in a boxing match. No one asked for that.
Yeah.
You're going into the store to buy a Diet Coke.
Right.
You were not asking for a traumatic brain injury. You didn't sign away your life,
Right.
right? You didn't sign any waiver. So the traumatic brain injury clients also, those are what we call catastrophic injuries. So they look like you and I on the outside, right? That's the odd part. They look like you and I. So you're sitting there in front of a jury, in front of a judge,
Yeah.
and the person looks fabulous.
Yeah.
But inside, they're broken.
Yeah.
They have memory problems. Their personality has changed. Their loved
Changed.
one is leaving them because they go crazy. They have changes in mood. They can't handle all the lighting. Suddenly, they need to be in dark places. They leave their keys in the fridge and accuse everyone of taking their fridge.
Yeah.
And this isn't some elderly person with Alzheimer's. It's somebody who's 30 years old,
Yeah.
right? And suffered this type of injury. So those are really big life changes. They're not able to communicate. They're not able to live their lives. They're not able to be that husband or that wife that they were. Their lives fall apart, right? There are really big cases that you have where people with super high IQs get injured with a door slamming into them, or getting into a major car accident where their head hits the steering wheel or their head hits the glass of the window. And suddenly, this super high IQ, high performance individual who is making, let's say, I don't know, millions of dollars. Somehow a jury's looking at him like, oh, great, they make millions of dollars. Why do we need to give them more? They're not able to perform
Yeah.
at their position. Like right now, we have a client who's a major CEO of a top company that you'd know. He was in a very high impact crash. He's no longer able to be the CEO at his company. So what's called loss of earnings is going to be a huge portion a huge portion of our case. Why? Because we're going to show that as a result of this accident, our client is no longer able to be that CEO. This guy was going to be taking a sommelier class because he loves wine as a hobby.
Yeah.
And he says, Sharon, I can't even remember the names of the different wines that I'm going to be talking about in the class. So what's the point of me taking this class? Why am I doing? Because he was going to host like some networking thing for his company. He's like, I can't even do that. I don't remember my colleagues' names and they're going to catch on. And he's at that really tender age where he's 60. So he's not old, but he's not super young, but he doesn't have Alzheimer's. You get it? But because he's 60, people might start thinking that's what it is, but it's not. It was the traumatic brain injury that he just had, because before, this guy was working at 110%, not even 100. So these types of accidents happen. You think, oh, it's a car accident. It's great. He looks great. He didn't break any bones. Worse, his brain got moved in such a severe fashion that it's never going to be the same.
How do you prove that? Is it?
Oh, those are so hard to prove. We call them invisible injuries.
Yeah.
And we have neurosurgeons and neurological testing that's done, just like we did for this gentleman, where they show the before and after. Some people are lucky. They have testing that's done before. Some people don't. It's okay. There's testing that is done after the fact that will show something's happened in the brain. Very expensive to do these tests, but we do that. Again, as an entrepreneur, you're going to ask, well, who's paying for that? I'm paying for that.
Of course.
So I'm paying like $5,000 for this person to go and get tested. There's several clinics in California. They're very hard to get into, very sought after, but we know they're respected. So we pay, let's say $5,000. The person goes and gets tested. We get the results. We show that to the insurance company or to the opposing counsel. And we say, listen, this guy's done.
Yeah.
He's done. He made $1 million a year. He can't work anymore. And he was going to work for another, let's say this guy was going to retire in about 10 years. So there's 10 million right there that he's never going to be able to make because he cannot focus anymore.
Yeah.
And he's really worried that people are going to find out. You get it? It's a whole thing. So traumatic brain injury is huge.
Yeah.
Huge in our field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you stay on top of all of these things that are going on, right? Traumatic brain injuries, all of the current cases, the things that are getting media attention. Like, what is your secret sauce to staying on top of trends?
Secret sauce is to be, honestly, a student at heart. I'm a student at heart. I'm always studying. I'm always reading. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't have access to the latest cases. I belong to a number of really big organizations where I get all the current cases. So I know about a case that settled for $1 million. I know about a case that settled for $30 million. What was the scenario? What testing was done? What was done? And what's really great about, believe it or not, the personal injury and the criminal community, we all share. Even though we're all competitors, and we certainly are, and we're fierce competitors, at the end of the day, there's enough cases to go around. There's no need to be anything other than classy and elegant. And we talk about our cases with each other.
Yeah.
So I will go up to somebody and say, hey, listen, I have this case. What do you think? Which mediator should I use? Who do you think will understand, the case that I have right now? What did you do? I know you resolved your case that was very similar to mine. What did you do? What kind of testing did you do? Did I miss anything? Is there anything additional? You never know. And I'm also very, very friendly with the doctors. So I go to a lot of learning events. I host a lot of learning events.
Yeah.
I'm president of a lot of events. So I bring in doctors. They educate us.
Yeah.
But it's constantly keeping up. So I think I kind of would make my dad proud in that I was pre-med at Berkeley and I was going to be a doctor. They told me I talk too much. So why don't I just pursue the law? A judge told me that. My dad's best friend, who was his partner in his medical practice, his wife was a judge, and I happened to sit next to her at a dinner, and she's like, you definitely talk a lot. My husband doesn't talk so much. Your dad doesn't talk so much. Doctors don't talk so much. Why don't you just pursue the law? And I'm like, we don't have any lawyers in our family. Everybody's a doctor in our family. So I think there's an innate love for medicine for me.
Yeah.
Certainly not a doctor, but I think I've learned enough and I constantly learn. And when I don't know, I ask and I study.
Yeah.
But again, we have experts. We use our doctors as experts.
Right.
They educate us. They educate the jury. So you don't have to know everything. You do have to know enough to spot what's going on with your client. But again, we have phenomenal medical professionals that guide us.
Yeah. And I was noticing, reading up on, kind of your story, that you have built this network of relationships that you lean on, right? Like it's a big part of, your, many superpowers is that you are a relationship builder and you introduce, you're like the node on a network, which I think is really powerful for any entrepreneur in any field, is to, build a business on the expertise of the relationships you have.
Absolutely. I feel that at the age of 16, I was given a book to read. It's a very old book, but it's still a bestseller. My dad had me read it. It's called Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence
It's
People.
still like an iconic business book, isn't
Phenomenal.
it?
And listen, if you learn from that book, okay, how to deal with people, who know more than you, know less than you, people you want to make your clients, people you want to make your friends, people you want. Like I'm talking to insurance adjusters and lawyers who are opposing me all day, every day, right? I cannot be super bitch, right? Why would they give me money? Why would they agree to do such a thing if I am not working with them in some sort of a friendly fashion? Now, you
Right.
can be strong, but still be friendly at the same time. So, bottom line, the book gave me a lot of tips. I use that knowledge all day, every single day. And I think through my skills and dealing with folks, I'm able to get along with them.
Yeah.
Just last night, I was with one of my friends and he's telling me, I'm like, hey, I saw that you just closed this case. Tell me about it. I want to hear about it. And he was telling me, and I said, so what'd you do? What was exactly what you said? What was the secret? And he said, Sharon, I read a good book recently. I recommend it to you. He said, The Art of War.
Yeah.
I have not read Art of War. I know
What?
that was gifted to me. I'm going to go out and read it because my friend told me. But again, it has to pick up on the same topics as Dale Carnegie's book because he told me he's also not an asshole. Reason we get along is he's also really good attorney, but very likable.
Yeah.
And usually people think you have to be just so hard and so difficult. It's really not the case. With them, when you are difficult, people don't want to work with you.
No.
They don't want to
No.
negotiate with you. They
No.
don't want to give you money. They don't want to help you. But when you are empathetic, you're kind, you build bonds, they actually are rooting for you, right?
Yeah.
They really are.
Yeah.
You believe it or not, they know when they're in the wrong. They know that their driver was drunk and hit my client and my client flipped around 5 times and it's a miracle they're not handicapped. They know.
Yeah.
Okay, the car was totaled. Just because my client, didn't walk away with, fractures everywhere doesn't mean they didn't suffer an injury. We're going to show you how they suffered. We're going to show you that they're not driving anymore. We're going to show you their kids scream and cry and don't want to get into cars anymore. So again, it's all about building relationships.
Yeah.
If there's anything I've learned, build relationships, make friends, be kind. People remember. Maya Angelou once said, it's not what you say to people. It's not what you give to people. It's how you make people feel.
Yeah.
If I make you feel bad, you're always going to remember I made you feel bad.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the words I used. But if I leave here making you feel good, uplifted, better about yourself, better about the experience, you're going to always have a positive impression. So it is always my goal in life, whatever room I'm leaving, if it's court, if it's a meeting, if it's going to a parent-teacher conference for my kids, I'm leaving that room making the other person feeling better, lighter, happier than when I found it. Always.
That's leadership. I mean, that's what great leaders do. You lift people up and you inspire the best in them and you believe in them.
That's so
And
kind of you.
I suspect that you are very good at that. And I
You're
want
so
to
kind.
thank you for your time and like your
Thank you.
awesome storytelling.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
really,
That's
really
what we
enjoyed
are.
it.
That's what we are.
Yeah.
People don't know. The best lawyers, we are really just good storytellers.
Yeah.
That's it.
I would tend to. I mean, we're humans. That's what
Yeah.
we learn from our stories.
That's right. I love it. And again, full credit to my parents,
Yeah.
who were the original storytellers, more so my mom than my dad, because my dad was the quiet doctor, but he told his stories too. But my mom, boy, could she tell a
Yeah.
story, and she was great at it.
The best skill you'll ever have.
100%. 100%.
Thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank
I just really
you.
enjoyed meeting you.
My pleasure and my honor. I
Yeah.
appreciate your
Go
time.
be excellent and keep kicking ass.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.